Back from Las Vegas. My voice is finally back. And man, I listened to a lot of Bengals media, podcasts, so on and so forth. And I felt bad for them because we really haven't done anything past 2-3 weeks. Other than aside from a couple silly comments people have made, but there hadn't been a whole lot of action since the contract signings that we covered. So these guys are on here on their daily podcast and on their daily I don't know, wires or whatever. I have a lot of space to fill complaining about the same stuff, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Always complaining about something.
I feel like I've heard the same show 37 times.
I have. And I know we're going to talk about one of the same shit that we've heard 3,500 times too.
Yeah. Yeah, we will. We will. Yeah, or we could just talk about the weather.
Yeah, we can do that too.
Justin, you got a good amount of rain down there?
Yeah, tornadoes is kind of just made his appearance this time around, and
Ooh.
it's been kind of destructive a little bit, and we've been trying to do what we can to keep safe. But yeah,
That's
lot
a
of
little bit of a
nastiness.
reality check right there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other stuff doesn't matter, but but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Let's get into some football. Welcome back. Once again, we are running through the jungle. I'm your host, Brandon Herriott, here with your hosts, Justin Lacey and Tim Lyons. What up, though?
What to do? Who day, Austin? Who
Yes,
day?
sir. Yes, sir.
Who day all day. Good to have Double A in the building. As always, thank you guys for rocking with us. If you are listening to us wherever you hear your podcast or watching us live on YouTube, please go ahead, take a moment, like, subscribe, thumbs up, get that first listen, and share. Tell a friend, tell a friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just jump right into some fun comments. The Bengals have found themselves back in the national media. I guess we should probably go in chronological order, right? So Tuesday, Katie Blackburn down in the owners' meetings makes some comments about Paycor Stadium, about Trey Hendrickson and his contract situation, and boy, there was a clap back on Wednesday afternoon on the Pat McAfee show. So a little back and forth. Basically, I'll just we'll put a synopsis on this. Look, the Bengals want to stay in Paycor Stadium, right? They didn't put a bunch of money into it. Redoing a bunch of things just to let it go to the wayside. So they just want to get this deal done sooner than later so they don't have to deal with it anymore, which is hilarious because their players would say the same thing, I think, in most cases. So the real issues, I think, with the comments were Trey Hendrickson and how Trey Hendrickson responded to those comments. Basically, I'll paraphrase, Katie Blackburn said, she wished Trey would be happy with what they have talked to him about and offered him as far as contracts, but he is not. And then kind of went on to say, they respect him. He's a great player. They would love to have him in the building, and maybe they can get something worked out. They'll have to see. Trey Hendrickson claps back on the Pat McAfee show, and basically said he was disrespected, felt disrespected by the way things were going. There was a lack of communication. And the real thing that stuck out to me, and you guys, I'm going to get your reactions to it, and if you took anything different out of it than what I have. But the real thing that I thought was interesting in Trey's comments were that he wants long-term stability. He wants to be able to tell his wife this is where they live and this is where they're going to be raising their kids. That was what I took out of it. And I think we've kind of been saying the whole time, they're not going to want to give, a 4-year extension to 3-4-year extension to a 30-some-year-old defensive lineman, which he obviously wants. Now, that was awful long-winded just to get into this. But Justin, I'll kick it over to you. Did you take anything else away from the comments that I didn't include there? And if so, what? And if not, what's your reaction to these? What do you think? Is it going to amount to anything? What's the solution? How do you think this plays out going forward?
I'll start with my initial reaction from both sides first and foremost. It seems like that we're at a stalemate. We're seeming like that this is at a crossroads where we've already known about the crossroads between this contract negotiation talk for a while, but now it seems like it's headed to a point where it's colliding full force at this point. I noted in the initial responses that what fans probably would want me to take, and that's to take the side of the player and say, oh my gosh, the front office, they're terrible, they're horrible, they will never learn. And look, I can say so many things to criticize this front office. But at the end of the day, you got to sort of need to know exactly the situation at hand and how different this was, comparatively speaking, to Jamar and T. Jamar and T was looking for their second contract. Trey Henderson, on the other hand, is going on his third contract. He's outperformed his current contract twice now. He signed an extension literally 2 years ago that put him through to this upcoming season. He is now on the last year of that contract. It was a fair market value deal for Trey Henderson, who was somewhat outperforming the contract that we had handed to him after 2021. I'm sorry, it'd be before the 2021 season happened. For as much criticism as fans like to give the front office, I think that you can't criticize the Bengals. Well, let me just say this. Be careful how you criticize the Bengals front office when it comes to Trey Henderson, because for as much as we talked about Jamar and T. Higgins specifically, they should have gotten those deals done early, they actually jumped out ahead and got the deal done early with Trey Henderson. So that's why I say be careful. Let me set the stage with that one. Now, let me go into the contract. And there is no problem. I have absolutely zero problem of how Trey Henderson is handling this situation. He has been outperforming that contract since day one that he stepped on the field for the Bengals. He has made 4 straight Pro Bowls, became a recent All-Pro, damn near could have won Defensive Player of the Year, ended up settling for the Deacon Jones Award because he led the league in sacks. And now he's asking for a new contract because his base salary is going to pay him just only $16 million for the year. And we have seen the market explode since then. I do not disagree with what he's doing here. And quite frankly, I actually applaud him for standing up for himself, because Katie Blackburn really sounds like someone that hates that the market has exploded on certain position groups. She hates that non-quarterbacks are entering that threshold for like making $40 million a year now. I think that she really didn't like that she had to give a $40+ million contract to Jamar, but it felt like they had to do it. And that's where we kind of have to turn the temperature up a little bit on them a little bit. It's like, do you guys got to be able to pivot and adjust? Now, everybody doesn't deserve to be paid top dollar. But the number one comment that I got that I also took away from Trey Hendrickson is that it doesn't look like his camp at all is asking to be paid top of the market dollar. But at the end of the day, I think the Bengals are looking at that, well, we're not trying to pay you second of the market top dollar either, because that would be Danielle Hunter in that case. But before, we were talking about the framework of the Danielle Hunter's contract was something that the Bengals could look to do with Trey. But I think the Bengals, they know that they want to have that number start with a 3, but they don't want that ending in 5. And that's the problem that I have with this team. And I hate what this negotiation has done for both sides here. I don't think either side is wrong for this. But I think that at the end of the day, it has gotten so carried away with the fact that this is boiling over to the ugly parts of the season. And now it is pigeonholing themselves that they're going to have to force need in the draft. I mean, they already kind of have to do that now, but it's really going to pigeonhole them that they got to force to take need this upcoming draft instead of creating value where they hope to when you only got 6 picks.
All right. I totally get your stance there, and I gotta be honest with you. You did catch me a little bit off guard. I did expect you to go in a little bit more player side and go in. You kind of came back around to it a little bit at the end, but I thought you were gonna go scorched earth there for a second. But I like to take. Tim, how do you feel about it? Did you take anything from the comments differently? And where do you think this ends up going? What direction does it head?
I think it's a pissing contest right now. It's Katie and Duke and the Cincinnati Bengals front office and Trey Hendrickson and his agent doing this. Never mind, I can't say that analogy, but see whose is bigger. There's two sides to every story. We're not there. We're not in the office. We're not on the phones. Trey Hendrickson said on Pat McAfee's show that he hasn't heard from the Cincinnati Bengals. His agent hasn't heard from the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, it's kind of hard to work with somebody when I feel this. So I feel two ways about this. One, Cincinnati Bengals could be screwing this completely up. The front office could be like, you know what? You're 30 years old. We're not paying you $36 million for 3 or 4 years. We're not doing it. I understand Myles Garrett, who's 30 years old, got the big $40 million contract a year. Hunter, 30 years old, got a big deal, and I understand and I get that Trey Hendrickson deserves money. I'm not saying that. I understand that. I do. I get it. But it's like somebody's going to have to give here. It's going to be either Cincinnati Bengals front office is going to give, or Trey Hendrickson's going to have to give, or maybe he needs to find a different agent. Maybe that's maybe his agent's the biggest problem of it all. Maybe I don't know. Like I said, we're not in the room when these conversations are happening. But I'm just tired of talking about. I'm honestly just tired of talking about it. I'm Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, you know what? We have 3 options. I've said this on many YouTube channels. With James Rapine and all these other guys. We have 3 options. We pay him, we trade him, or Trey Hendrickson sits. Problem is with Trey Hendrickson sitting for a year, he's 30 years old. He's not a 26-year-old defensive end, racking up 17 and a half sacks. His 4th or 5th year in the league. So him sitting, it could hurt him. It definitely could hurt him. You've made the comments of, paying these defensive ends or edge rushers. We'll just say edge rushers, over, 30 plus years old, those stats were like Lawrence Taylor, Bruce Smith, Reggie White,
only 2 or 3 of them were actually productive. Lawrence Taylor
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
productive.
but and Trey Hendrickson, I'm sorry, you're not Bruce Smith, you're not Reggie White. You'll never be. And I love you as a Cincinnati Bengal, but something's got to give here. I understand that you want longevity. I get it. I completely get it. But unfortunately, you're in the Cincinnati Bengals organization, and they are probably not going to give you 3 or 4 years and 35, 36, 37 million a year. It's not going to happen. But I'm just tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of talking about it. It just
drives you cuckoo.
Yeah, just like my clock just said, cuckoo, cuckoo. But yeah, it's getting to that point to where it's like Trey needs to find either a reasonable trade that Cincinnati Bengals are going to accept, or he's going to have to accept a deal, or he's going to be like, you know what, screw it, I retire, I'm done with it. They threatened this last year too. Trey Hendrickson and his agent really haven't done him any justice. Like Justin said, he's outplayed his contracts. Yeah, but you signed a 2-year deal, and then on the year that you weren't even eligible to discuss a new deal, you still threw a fit about it. So it's like that's the other part of the side. I'm going, what the hell's going on? I don't know. I'm not in there. So it is what it is. And if it happens, great. But I don't think it's going to happen until after the draft. I think things are not going to, with Trey, is not going to move until after the draft, because what if we, hit a home run in the draft and get a good edge rusher in the draft? Somebody that we actually hit a home run with, or maybe we find somebody in free agency. I don't know. It's just getting old talking about the same Trey Hendrickson thing for the last 3 years. It's just getting old.
To piggyback on your last few comments here, Trey's camp is the one that came out and said that he was worth a first round draft choice. Now, I know Trey McAfee said something about 3 or 4 first round. No, that's never been discussed. And he's the one, they put that expectation out there. Mm-hmm. And from all reports, the Bengals did not receive an offer for a first round draft choice, which is what they said he was worth. Mm-hmm. The Bengals didn't make that. They did.
And that's why I'm like split. Like, I understand the front office, but I also understand Trey Hendrickson.
So to your part about Trey Hendrickson aging, right? I would give more leeway to an aging defensive end if he had the Max Crosby 80, 90 tackles a year under that belt as well. He does not. He has 40, 45 tackles, and 17 and a half of them are sacks. So he does one thing really well, doesn't disrupt outside of that one move from that one spot. I've said that before. I will say that the communication issue, not hearing, that's unacceptable. If you have a great player and you have a negotiation going on, someone should be reaching out to that player every couple of days, or that agent every couple of days, just to keep, all right, we're still working on it here. We want to make sure we're engaged with you. Things are going on. Talks are being had. What else? Are you guys willing to give anything yet? Yada, yada, yada. I think that has to happen. But I said going into this, that if we sign Jamar Chase and at least get assets for T or Trey, good assets, then I'd be all right if one of them couldn't re-sign.
Right.
Don't let him walk for free. The only one that could walk for free, because he only had 1 year in his deal and what was going on, would be Trey. And that's the situation we're in.
Yeah.
I hate to think that he would sit out, but it's a possibility. I don't like the idea of having this looming over the team going into training camp again with something going on. But at the end of the day, I don't know that it's money necessarily that's a sticking point here. The difference between 35 and 32 or 30, I don't know that that's the difference, especially from Trey Hendrickson's statements on Pat McAfee's show. I think it's the years.
Yeah.
I think it's the years. It keeps pointing back to the years for me. And we said a long time ago, the Bengals ain't going to give a 4-year contract. Somebody's getting ready to turn 32. You know what I mean? Or 31, whatever. So I just don't see him playing under a contract that keeps him as a Cincinnati Bengal to 35 or 36 years old.
Amen.
Now, it's unfortunate that we're in the media for this stuff again. And you're hearing some of the spending money things arise or whatever. We're spending money. You know what I mean? We're going to end up being one of the top 5 in cash spent this offseason. We're spending money. I'm not concerned with that. I think a little bit of that narrative has started to die. We'll get into a little bit more of that as we go on, but let's get into man, this could be a long one. You know what? I'm going to take our first break here. Let's take a break here because I'm going to get into our overall offseason thoughts, and I have a feeling I got some things to say, so that leads me to believe that both Justin and Tim will have some things to say. So Give us a quick second. We're going to take our first break here, and we'll be right back after some messages from our sponsored partners. Welcome back to Runnin Thru the Jungle. Once again, it's Brandon Herriott here with Justin, Lacey, and Tim Lyons. We did get into all the comments from Katie Blackburn and Trey Hendrickson, but now I want to get our overall offseason thoughts. And Justin, I'll throw it straight to you. Just from a mile-high view, what's your overall thoughts on this offseason so far?
Well, I feel like that the offseason has been dominated by contract talk, and we felt like that's stuff that could have been wrapped up the moment that the season was over with. But it just feels like that they usually begin the contract talks immediately after the official football season ends, and that's after the Super Bowl. But my overall feeling as well, too, outside of the contract talks, is that so far the Bengals has been very underwhelming. I don't feel like that they have, like, the organization has really shown that it's really been an attack with aggression and make sure that we don't operate with missing the playoffs again for like we did the past 2 seasons. I just feel like that this offseason was very much predicated on, look, man, we got a tall task to do with getting Jamar, getting T potentially extended, and potentially now Trey. It feels like that the whole offseason has been dominated by that they have basically made lackadaisical moves in free agency. No one has moved the needle for me whatsoever. I understand people got excited about, guys like Samaje Perine coming back, guys like Mike Gesicki getting extended, bringing back Tanner Hudson on a cheap deal, Joseph Ossai re-signing for 1 year. I don't care about none of that, honestly. I was very much considering that how this season was going to be a success for me, or the potential upcoming season was going to be a success for me, was that I was very much comparing it to, you need to bring back your 3 best players on new deals. You got 2 out of 3. I understand Joe Burrow, threw a claim out for Mike Gesicki, but we're not talking about Gesicki right now. And on top of that, you got to add guys too. You got to continue to add talent, because it was never going to be decided by getting these 3 contracts done. It was always going to be decided by, can you get 3 contracts done plus some? They didn't do the plus some. And yet they still in contract talks with Trey Henderson, as we already mentioned in the previous segment. It's just been very underwhelming, man. Like, I don't feel like that they made any true innate changes that symbolizes that we're going to do everything we can to commit to winning. If I was seeing an aggressive front office, I know everybody likes to point to the Eagles, but there's other aggressive front offices out there that you can use. For example, I would have been moved off of Jermaine Pratt a long time ago. Sorry, I would have been done that. Whether if it was cut him or you trade him and find a valuable trade partner, now you're forced to probably stuck keeping him until potentially maybe cutting him after the draft. But even then, what good is that going to do if you haven't drafted his replacement during the draft? Because we already know you're not going to trade on draft night. So that's just going to be them forcing themselves to keep him on another unhappy player on the roster when they already could have done something about it before the trade demand even came about. Most of the fans was already understanding that Jermaine Pratt was off this team. They didn't do a good job with contract structures on the new deals, so that way they can even free up more cap space like we thought that they could, and like we've shown doing various amounts of exercises from a spot tracker or whatever we've done to cap offseason cap management. They didn't do a good job of any of it. Now, for this most part, I do somewhat understand when it came to Jamar and T. But dude, you could have did a lot better job overall with the cap flexibility and the management, and you just didn't. And now you let good players that would have been good on your team, on in addition to what you already had. Probably, like, for example, Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa signed like a 2-year deal with the Buffalo Bills.
$12 million a year, I think, something like that.
Joey Bosa would have been a great addition opposite of Trey Henderson if you already would have got that deal done. And guess what? I'm still looking to draft an edge rusher in the draft. Okay, because we already know Joey Bosa's injury history, it is whatever. But it's one of those things where it's like you didn't do enough to move the needle to me. That signals that you're trying to win. You didn't do enough. And that's you didn't make enough moves, not even with your own players, but with external free agents as well, too. I feel like that this is setting up to be for somewhat of a soft kind of disappointment for this 2025 season. I hate saying it early on because we haven't even hit the draft yet, but it's just setting up very early on that this is going to be an upcoming very disappointing season to where, man, Joe Burrow's going to have a repeat of 2024 where he's going to be throwing for a lot of yards, and we're going to barely even make the playoffs and go one and done, or miss the playoffs altogether.
All right. Fair assessments, I believe. Tim, let me hear your mile high view of the overall offseason thus far for the Cincinnati Bengals, because it does seem like it's pretty much over.
Oh yeah, it was over with as soon as we re-signed Jamar Chase and T. But I figured Justin would be excited about that Lucas Patrick signing. I thought he'd be jumping out of his seat, but I guess not. Dang, Justin. But no, this offseason, of course we brought on TJ Slayton, like I said, Lucas Patrick. I do like the Slayton addition. Last year he led the league in rush defense. So that was, that's a positive because, we always struggle in the rush defense, but it's not like he's going to be a big impact. It's not like he's going to be coming in there and he's going to be Geno Atkins 2.0. He's a big dude. He's a big monster dude. So, Austin brought up Oren Burks from Philadelphia. He filled in nicely last year for Philadelphia when their starter went down.
Playing against good teams at the time, too.
Yeah, playing against good teams. So what I was most excited for was the T. Higgins re-signing, the Jamar Chase re-signing. And like I said before, Mike Gesicki being re-signed for 3 years. And we actually have a solid tight end in there for Joe to throw to for the next 3 years instead of us going, who are we going to bring in now? Then Eric All, I know, isn't he's out this season.
He's out. He'll be rehabbing all year.
So unfortunately, we're going to miss Eric All this year. So that's sad news for the off season, but it hasn't been very eventful after the whole T and Jamar Chase thing, which I knew really wasn't going to happen. Like I said on our last podcast that Justin and I did while Brandon was off gallivanting in Vegas and,
Woohoo.
playing slots and gambling. I did bring up the thing of, you got to pay Trey Hendrickson because right now, if you look at the free agency list as of right now, there's nobody, to me, I don't think there's nobody to go after in the free agency, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anybody left. I think all the main names and the people that were going to, we're going to make an impact on the Cincinnati Bengals roster are left. I really don't. There might be a veteran corner out there that might help our young corners out there, but I just don't see them coming to Cincinnati. It just, unfortunately, I think this Trey Hendrickson thing is just, it's kind of like, you're watching Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore comes by and he goes, and he just ruins the mood. This whole Trey Hendrickson thing just kind of ruined the mood for the off season. Yeah, it's a buzzkill, and I know that we stated that if we re-sign T and Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson and Mike Gesicki, or 2 or 3 of those guys out of the 4, it was going to be a successful season. And I think it's been successful off season besides the whole Trey Hendrickson, Eeyore problem. But I believe that the Bengals off season is over with. I don't see anything else happening unless, we trade Jermaine Pratt eventually, or we finally release Moss, because I don't understand why he's still, when we could save money, but I think it's kind of too late for us to save money. I can't remember what the deadline was on that.
Double A, it's a great comment right there. Austin's Art says the Hedrick stuff is basically a sequel to a movie that no one ever asked for.
Amen. Yep. I agree with you on that one. But that's my off-season thoughts. It's over. I think it's over with. Besides, the upcoming draft, while Brandon's getting married, the draft is coming. And I think that's the only thing that we can really look forward to see if the Bengals, get a hit or if they get a miss. And Brandon's going to get a hit, so getting married. So that's a good off season. That'll turn our off season around.
Gonna get hitched. Yeah. So to comment on a couple of things you guys talked about, the Jermaine Pratt thing, I think that's just kind of a little bit of a standoff right now as far as the trade. I'm sure they're trying to squeeze a 6th or a 5th rounder out of it. They're probably getting offered a 7th rounder from Indian. We expect the Colts or whoever else would be out there. But at the end of the day, if you get anything for him, take it. Just be done. We need another draft pick. We need to get some more bodies in the building. Maybe you hit on somebody. You never know. I think there's more upside to Joseph Osai than you guys have been, given credit to. Just the eye test. Watching him last year, the second half of the year, I thought he was running around a little bit better. I think he would be ahead of schedule where he's at now if he got more playing time. But that wasn't in the cards for him. Lou wanted to play the veterans and the guys he trusted. That was his style. And, I see that being different now with, Golden going forward. So Osai basically, by the way, had played half the season, just like Joey Bosa played half the season, and they had almost identical stats.
Yeah.
So I do want to throw that out there. They both had 5 sacks. They both had 40 whatever tackles. They were both about the same player because Joey Bosa has not been the same player the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that Osai take. I just forgot about it for some reason, but it is what it is.
Our guard situation, I think we have addition by subtraction, and I wonder, is it Matt Smith? Is that the kid's name center out of we drafted last year
Florida?
from
Miami?
Miami that everybody liked? Matt Lee. That's right.
Lee.
Sorry. I knew it was a very plain last name. I should be able to remember it. That's my middle name. So Matt Lee, I wonder if they have confidence in him moving around in the interior playing guard. Don't know. That might be part of it too. I don't know. That's some questions I have about behind the scenes stuff, right? But I think we're better off now than we were last season already at guard. And I think it's not done being addressed. Whether we sign somebody else, draft a good guard, or sign somebody else and draft. They've talked about the tackle moving to guard situations. They've been a lot of 30 visits with those kind of guys. I think something's going to be happening there. My biggest thing, and here's where I go rant. My biggest thing, and some of the stuff I was kind of alluding to, in the soft opening, is the whole Chicken Little shit. The sky is falling, and holy shit, we haven't done anything, and this place sucks, and here we go, same old Bengals, and blah 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 blah. What were we supposed to do? Were we supposed to uproot the entire team and start over from scratch? We signed the 2 most important signs. We've got Trey Hendrickson under contract. Now, if he doesn't play out his contract, man, that sucks, right? Yeah. But we got him under a contract that he wanted, then we gave him. I understand him not being happy about the being extended. Hopefully we can get that figured out. Regardless, we have Trey under contract, so you have to assume he's coming into play. So now you start looking at the issues. I keep hearing people say, "Hey, we gotta draft, defensive line and defensive tackles and this." I keep hearing mock drafted defensive tackles. Starting off the year, there were injuries to B.J. Hill, McKinley Jackson, Chris Jenkins, all on our defensive front. Do you know what we averaged giving up the second half of the year as far as rush yards per game?
It wasn't too bad.
112 yards. That's 11th in the league.
Yeah.
That's the 11th best rush defense in the league.
Yeah.
The second half of the season. So you look at that. Then you look at the defenses, did not play up to par, did not play up to snuff. But look at the injuries we had to deal with last year. Cam Sample, B.J. Hill, Sam Hubbard, Logan Wilson, D.J. Turner, Josh Newton, Sheldon Rankins. No one, that's an easy one to forget, right?
Yeah.
Sheldon Rankins, Dax Hill, Chris Jenkins, Mike Hilton, DJ Ivey, and McKinley Jackson all missed time.
Mm-hmm.
No loan to people that were banged up. Listen, are there always injuries? Yes. But if we cut some of these injuries down to keep players, now we add a good defensive tackle already from the Green Bay Packers, who had very good rushing numbers as far as rush down wins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're too far off there. I don't think we're too far off. I like our corner room, to be honest with you. I like some of the stuff I've seen from the young guys. I think, I expect DJ Turner was making a step. Dax Hill looked good before he got injured. He got injured early, right? Josh Newton, I thought, played pretty well.
Yeah.
The kid we brought over from New England played serviceably.
Marco.
I think you move Dax Hill over to that Mike Hilton position, he plays even better. I think you maybe add to that room, maybe add to the safety room, definitely get into the edge. I think defensive tackle is deep in this one. Maybe you get somebody later. I don't know. But I think you're closer there than you think you are. And when you look at glaring needs on offense, it's only another offensive lineman. And then it's you kind of best available, right? So this whole Chicken Little, the sky is falling thing, the team went 9-8 last year. Missed the playoffs, sucks, right? But went 9-8. Do you know how many games they lost by one score or less?
Was it 7, 6 or 7?
7.
Yeah.
7. Guys, we're not that far away from being
right
12-5. 11. We're not far away from being like a contending team there. And no one in the playoffs last year wanted to play us. No one wanted to play us. No one wanted to smoke. Yes, Justin.
So I'll play the devil's advocate approach here to everything that you just stated there, Brandon, because I do agree to a large part that you don't want to over panic and over assume that, oh my gosh, this is awful. But with a lot of what I was saying, more so just relied on the strength of the Bengals are just not operating this offseason like they were a team that wants to stop the slow starts. That's a team that wants to get back to their winning ways, that wants to understand that, look, we got to trim some dead fat. Like before Sam Hubbard retired, what was the contract? What was the situation and conversation talks around Sam Hubbard? Oh, let's restructure his contract. No, I want him off my team, period. He's not good anymore. And yet, if that was the conversation that was happening across the fan base, whoa, boy, I don't even want to hear the rest of the fans talking for real. That's that part. The Bengals just don't have no other generated pass rush. And the comments that Duke Tobin has stated in the combine, I'm not trying to pay a lot more money to bring back the same team. Well, you kind of just did that. You brought again, not even going to bring back Joseph Ossai for a second. BJ Hill signed a 3-year, $33 million deal. That's fine. But I was okay with moving on from a guy like BJ Hill had you would have been more aggressive getting an interior D lineman. Now, I know Osi Aduigazua, that was a guy that I really wanted. He ended up going back to the Cowboys. Teams are getting smarter now with their best guys that they tagged that they do not want to hit free agency. A lot like us with T. Higgins. But I think that it was more so predicated on the Bengals could have made a little bit more aggressive moves to fix up some of these issues. They could have explored a couple of options via trade, like trading for a player in return for another player in a pick or something like that. They could have done a little bit more with the understanding that of everything you just mentioned that, hey, you're not as far as if you believe, but you still can't go in with the same thing and thinking that it's going to work again. Yeah, you're probably going to choose not to bring back Mike Hilton. That's fine. And moving Dax Hill to slot probably is fine. But he is also coming off an injury. And what if he's not the same guy that you drafted with the hope for being a good slot corner or a good safety or a good whatever the case it is? What if he doesn't come back as full healthy like we did with Cheeto? There's a reason why we moved on from Cheeto Bay-Awuzie, who was a free agent, now signed in Baltimore. I think the Bengals should have done a little bit more in that. Asante Samuel Jr. is still out there. The Bengals never decided to bring him in for a visit. I don't know if any team did, but that could have been a piece that you could have brought in. And guess what? Even though I know you say you like our corners, I don't love our corners. We still don't have a true number one. So that makes me believe that if the CB1 falls to you in round one, you better take it just because you don't have one.
I'm
It's
okay
one
with
of those things where it's like, to play the devil advocate approach, the Bengals could have shown a little bit more. And it's not like saying spend a bunch of more money. It's not, I don't want to get it confused with that, because they did spend a lot more money, but they just did it on the same players for the most part, or the same quality of production style that they were getting before. And you did bring up a good point about Joey Bosa and Joseph Ossai, and they're comparing the sack numbers, because Joey Bosa, you're literally just paying for the name. But that's okay if you were going after an edge rusher in round one to begin with, because at the end of the day, I'm not leaning on health of those guys. I still want to go out there and get a stud pass rusher in round one or maybe round two if they fall to me. But at the end
Absolutely.
of the day, I think that the Bengals could have did a lot more.
So I think the edge is one of those things that I would look for when you can hit.
Yeah.
You got to get somebody that can get some rush on the passer. You can't just rely on who you got in. I agree with that. But defensive tackle wise, I mean, you want to take a guy from the Cowboys, who the fourth worst team against the rush. TJ Slayton rush defensive wins and on a good rush defense, and played with our new defensive line coach. Like,
Right.
I think they got the right guy. I think BJ Hill is good. I think BJ Hill played really well and played through an injury to his hamstring. Like, I expect him to be really good. And he definitely fits in the culture. The guys like him. Like, there's also that part of it too. When you lose a guy like Sam Hubbard, you keep a guy like BJ Hill in there, you get a little more of that camaraderie. And who knows, you may not have Hendricks. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I do agree with you about guard too. I feel like the overblown assessment on the guard situation from this fan base is a little bit too much. It's just a little bit too extreme, because I really don't understand fans in their assessment of really believing that, dude, this guard play was so bad. With Alex Kappa, it was just so bad to the point, bro, like, you got to nix that immediately.
Turnstile. Listen, a traffic cone would have been better. I listen, it's closer than we think it is. Now, the difference is we had more picks in last year's draft. This draft has to be better. We can't draft like we did. We can't miss as many times as we have. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles drafting. You look at the Detroit Lions drafting. You look at all those guys. That is what we have to do if we're going to pay our guys.
Yeah.
You have to be able to subsidize it with the draft. And the problem is we've only got 4 people that work in that front office in scouting really full time. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see investment there too. I'd rather them spend an extra 5, 6, 8 million there than overpay Trey. That's just me. But good segue. Draft philosophy. Let's talk about that best available, as you were talking about earlier, Justin, versus drafting for your need. Do you look for it in certain rounds? Do you look for it all the time? Which do you prefer? What do you think? And maybe it's different from draft to draft. And what do you think about this year? Justin, we'll kick it right over to you.
Yeah, my philosophy when it comes to the draft, and this has been this way for me ever since the Chase versus Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell debate. Everybody always points out at the need. Who's the best need? And everybody also then points out, okay, well, does he fill the positions and stuff? For me, the draft has always been about the best value, the greatest value. Okay, there's need, there's talent, and then there's value. Jamar Chase was always the player that was going to maximize the most value. He ended up being the most talented player in that draft, period. Okay. And we also recognize that, and especially now. And that's exactly the same philosophy and approach that I have to this day. The first 3 rounds, more specifically, I need value.
There you go.
I need value.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Rounds.
Yeah.
So pick 1, pick 2, and pick 3. And that can be a combination of the best available plus the need. More specifically, in the first round, I need the need to marry along with the best available so that way it can really create that value. Problem is, you're not picking in the top 10 like you did when you drafted Jamar Chase at pick 5. Okay. This is not that draft. But you also are not picking in the back end of the draft at pick 31 like you did when you went to the Super Bowl and you ended up getting Dax Hill, which honestly, in my opinion, that could have worked out if you would have put him in the right position and help him succeed better. This time around, the Bengals got a perfect little sweet spot to where if they want to be able to anticipate who's going to come off the board that they really like, and then they can anticipate a trade back so that way they can get the guy that they want at a value spot that works for them while still maximizing and getting some more picks in return. That's how I look at this. And I will do that for all three for the first 3 rounds. Now, in the back 3 rounds, you just got to take best available at that point. I understand people are going to say, well, you haven't really taken a guard yet. Like if you take an edge rusher round 1, and in round 2, you take, let's say, a linebacker, and in round 3, you take a tight end. Then the Bengals fan that is going to be like, oh my gosh, the guard play still stinks. What are you going to do about the guard? They're going to force you to take guard at 4, 5, and 6. And if you want to take development projects with those last 3 picks, fine, do whatever you need to do. But I'm sorry, but I'm not about to have blinders on to the belief that I need to force a need. I'm not going to Billy Price my situation in the back end of the rounds. If a value position is there, like for example, if I'm seeing a solid corner that, damn, I can't believe he fell this far to round 4, I'm taking him. If I see a value receiver around pick 5, or round 5 and pick whatever spot we is, and I know we just signed Jamar T, but I ain't done adding talent. It's about maximizing and acquiring the best assets that you can because you just never know. We talk about we want the team to start faster all the time. We talk about these receivers doing contracts, but what typically happens after somebody signs a big deal? And I don't want to just put that bad juju out there, but typically sometimes it follows up with a worse season than it was the year before that they even did sign the deal. What if one of those 2 guys get hurt and is lost for the season? And what's your game plan then? Just deal with T all year or just deal with Jamar all year and then get – no, you got to have a plan in place. That's what the Eagles do. That's what the Rams do. The Rams were literally just in a rebuild, and we thought that we were in a way better position than them. And yet here they are, better than us because they drafted better, and they had the philosophy with F them picks. Now they've picked very well. And they've got a lot of players that worked out for them because they drafted well, they scouted well. So best available versus need, yeah, you can say that, but at the end of the day, if they're creating the most value for you, that's the direction I will go.
Yeah, your value top 2 or 3 rounds, and then best available after that. I get it, man. That's a good way to look at it. Tim, what about you? Draft philosophy, best available versus need. Is it change year to year? And what do you think Bengals should do this year?
It's definitely changed year to year. You know, you look at us in 2020. We knew we needed the best quarterback at number 1, and we got Joe Burrow. You know, we knew we needed a quarterback. 2021, I didn't have a clue what the hell the Cincinnati Bengals were doing because we drafted Jamar Chase. I wanted Penei Sue. You know, because
wouldn't you like to have that choice every year, though?
Right.
You know, the best right tackle of football, best wide receiver of football.
Yeah. But I was wrong. You know, I was absolutely wrong. Jamar Chase is a great wide receiver. I respect him. You know, the last couple of years have been kind of like, did we get the best or the value, you know, as Justin said, the value in round 1 with Murphy? No, we didn't. Murphy has not proven anything from what I'm seeing. But hold on, Cincinnati Bengals fans. But let's not forget we have a new defensive coordinator.
And defensive line coach.
And defensive line coach. And I might, like I always say, I might be a Golden Domer, but I think Golden is going to make changes to this defense and help them evolve. The young guys, you know, evolve into great players. I just have that feeling. You know, look what Golden did with Logan Wilson when he was a rookie. You know, Logan Wilson's a good linebacker. He was under Golden's wing because Golden was the linebacker coach during. And I'm not giving Golden all the credit because Logan Wilson is talented, but it is different. You know, my philosophy is different every year. This year, we're at 17. And I know people are saying, oh, draft Walter Nolan or draft Mike Green, edge rusher. Nick Scorton or whatever the hell his name is from South Carolina came up. I'm to this point to where I'm like I said backstage, I don't know right now. Like, honestly, at 17 is like this middle, I don't know, kind of like Death Valley right now. To me, it is.
Purgatory. It's
Yeah,
purgatory.
it's like purgatory. Yeah, it's like purgatory. Like, to me, it's like, okay, do we go and do we draft the best edge rusher that we can get off the board? Do we go and pick up Walter Nolan at number 1? Or
To
do
your
we
point,
go?
though, the problem at 17 is your edge rushers you're going to get to pick from are going to be either ones that have character flaw issues that are in question off the field,
And
or
some
they're
of them
going to
aren't
have
even.
lack of productivity on the field. One of the two.
Yep. And they're not going to, everything that I've read, I've been reading a lot. I did like 6 mock drafts in a row to see who would fall to me in round 1. But a lot of them, like their RAS, which is like the what's called relative something score, whatever the hell, realistic athletic score, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, they didn't have any. Some of them were like 6.2s. And in the comments, when they break these down, they go, well, he has a high ceiling, but he's not a first year starter in the NFL. Could take him a couple of years to develop and da 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 da. And I go, well, we have Al Golden. He could develop him, and we have the new defensive line coach. We could develop somebody, but right now we're not in the realm of needing to develop somebody right now. We're in the let's draft him, let's put him in there, let's let him get sacks and tackles.
Yeah, so, I couldn't agree with you more on that one.
So it's just like, and then I look at the draft, and I know I'm talking about the draft, but we're gonna do I think draft next week or whatever. But like for me right now, like my favorite player right now that I'm looking at is the safety from what is he, 6'3", 6'4"? What the hell is his name?
Nicky.
Yeah, Nicky
Yumanyara.
Yeah,
out of South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah, he's 6'3". Yeah, 6'3", 6'4". And I know, are we going to draft a safety in the first round? Is it a good idea? But like I said, we're in that purgatory, at 17.
I've seen
so
Malachi
it's like,
Starks fall to us too.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of guys, fall to us. I asked Brandon about Will what's his name? The corner from
Will
Michigan.
Johnson.
Will Johnson. What if Will Johnson drops to us at 17? He's a corner. We need. I still believe we need corners. At that point, it's like, do we?
He would be an upgrade and a probable number 1 corner.
Yeah. So, and I know that's one thing that Justin and I and I know I've said. CTB is not a true number 1. He's just not a number 1.
So to me, if you don't take a corner in the first round, you're not taking a corner till the 5th, 6th, 7th.
Right. So yeah, but that's how my draft philosophy is. It's kind of like, well, yeah, it's kind of like, well, it is what it is at this time and this year and this point and what we need and everything. I'm like all over the place when it comes to the draft, and you'll see that next week.
So I'm mostly best available, or I do like the value thing. I guess I've never really quantified it like Justin did, as well as eloquently as Justin did, but I kind of always thought that way. Most years, that's my go-to. This year, I think, last year we took some swings, and I'm not going to say they're misses yet or whatnot. I think Mims is going to be a very good pro, and we got some other guys that could turn out to be pretty good. But we took some swings and misses on, maybe somebody, wide receiver that was a 4th or 5th rounder that we took in the 3rd rounder, and Burton that, had some character issues and whatever. We don't have the ability to do that this year.
Right.
Not in picks 1 or 2. In the first 2 rounds, I think you need to get at least 1 starter and at least some impact on the other one. That's the reason why when I look at this, I look at the Detroit Lions a couple years ago when they took Jack Campbell, they took Jahmyr Gibbs before everybody thought they should have.
Yeah.
But they addressed needs and they got their guys. That's why I don't think I would not be mad. And I don't know, listen, if people start falling, if you get a number one corner or a good edge rusher fall, take what I'm getting ready to say off the table. But if that doesn't happen and they go at 17 and they're a little ahead of it, they can't get somebody to trade back with them, and they say, hey, we're going to go get our guy. We're going to get Tate Rutledge. We're going to get Tyler Booker. We're going to have a guard that's going to start for us.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I normally wouldn't be in most years. This year, I'd be okay with it because you got to get that first one. That first one's got to play for you.
Mhm.
That second one's got to have some impact on you. And then you have to get at least one or two more that have impact in the rest of the draft. You need one starter and two impact players minimum in this draft. I prefer 3 impact players, or 2 and 2 would be fantastic. If you get a starting linebacker, starting safety, starting guard that were above average starters, average or above average starters their rookie year, I mean, chef's kiss. So that's the reason why I kind of wanted to address that. I think it's a little bit different for me this year than most years. Just not really like that value, though. That was nice. It was nice. All right, give me one player, whoever it is, but give me somebody realistically, one player that you'd love to see the Bengals draft.
We started with.
You know what? You've started almost every time. Let's go to Tim. Tim, you start first. Name one Notre Dame player that you would love to see the Bengals draft.
No, you know what's funny is you talk about Notre Dame. So there was a safety that was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens a couple years back by the name of Kyle Hamilton, 6'4" safety. And he's turned out to be a great safety. And he was a great ball player when he was at Notre Dame. Yeah, that's my bias, but he's proven it in the NFL. And that's who Nick E reminds me of. He's 6'3", 6'4", built like a linebacker. And I know it's not, if he's the best available, I would draft him as our number one. I think he would have a great impact because he's a bit, that's pretty big, because I know all these other, of best available safeties, they're 5'11", 6 foot. But when you got someone that's 6'3", 6'4", that's a big damn safety. And they can do a lot of hurting when it comes to run support or, blitzing or just putting a pounding on dudes when they're coming over the middle. But I'm rooting for Nick E as a safety. And I know Brandon's like, oh, what Notre Dame player? If we draft, a Morrison or, if Morrison drops to us, or Jack Keisner, or is it Jack or I'm just getting mixed up today. Kaiser.
Jack Kaiser.
Jack Kaiser. I even like the kid from Ohio State, Jack, the edge rusher. What's his name? It's Jack
Sawyer.
also. Jack Sawyer. Yeah, I also like Jack Sawyer too. But like for me, I'm leaning like this year. I'm leaning like more towards the defense of the side of the ball. I'm not even looking at offensively. Offensively for me, it's a guard or a tackle. Somebody that can start day one. So. Yeah, that's my realistically, and that's why I brought up Nick E when we were talking about the whole philosophy of my drafting. And, it's just, I think he has that frame, and I think he can be an impact day one.
So is he your final answer? Because I know you said 7
Yeah,
people.
I'm sorry. Yes, he's my final answer.
Nick, we got it.
Yeah.
All right. I got a little confused. I'm sorry. Justin, who you got? Name one player you want to see the Bengals.
I'm going to stick with pick 17. I want Mike Green. Give me the edge rusher out of Marshall. I don't care about his character concerns that people would have thought that he had that led to him transferring to Marshall. The dude's been cooking in college football. 17 sacks. I want him opposite of Trey Henderson. for all the talk that a lot of people are having fearful conversations about the Browns potentially drafting Abdul Carter and pairing him alongside with Myles Garrett, that's great. I understand that. I see that, and I'll raise you with Trey Hendrickson and Mike Green. That pairing and that combination of finishers, that is what I'm going to be excited for. They obviously got to get that contract stuff done first with Trey, but Mike Green, he is my number one guy that I want to see drafted by the Bengals.
I like it.
Mine is going to probably surprise Tim more than anyone. I think this is somebody you're going to get in that. I think we can get him around the 4th round range. If he's there in the 4th round, I say Jack Kaiser.
Yeah, I already knew it.
I think he's smart. He knows Golden. He knows Golden's system. He immediately comes in and has a great rapport. Now you have 2 linebackers in the middle that both have played for Golden, both know what's going on there. I think it's a great fit. And listen, I know he's not the biggest linebacker in the world. Man, he likes to put a helmet on people though.
Yeah, he does.
I dig that. I think we need a little bit of that. But yes, Austin Zart, I agree with you on Ratledge. I think Ratledge is a dog from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended. But I really think he would fit really well. I want to see some big nasty up there. You know what I mean? And I think we need it in the interior. I think we got some on the outsides right now. I think we need a little bit more nasty in the interior. Before we get into the final thoughts here on the way out, we've hit our hour mark. Next week, reluctantly, we'll do a mock draft, as Tim alluded to. I don't know if everybody out there listening knows this already. I despise mock drafts. I don't mind doing one this close to the draft.
Right.
When we start doing them on other podcasts I'm on and stuff, when you do them before they even have any of the visits, any of the interviews, any of the combine, I'm like, what are we doing here, man? Let's watch some tape first. So we're going to do a mock draft for the Bengals only. We'll go through all 6 picks next week, and we'll talk about that. And, hopefully we can talk about some more news. Maybe we sign another guard. Maybe we sign Trey Hendrickson, or maybe we just piss him off more. Who knows? Justin, closing remarks. What do you got to say to the people?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm actually looking forward to our first mock draft and our only mock draft for next week. I feel like that the abundance of them has just been kind of like do or die, to the point where I get to the point, if somebody starts a mock draft on their show and I'm watching it and they get to pick 17 and they pick somebody that is not on my bingo card, I don't even watch the rest of it. I'm just to that point. I don't really care, because I'm getting tired of mock drafts at this point. I have my basket of guys that I would think that will be great fits for the Bengals. They are hounds, and I want them on my team. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to just set myself up for disappointment anyway. So, but that's my closing remarks. I am looking forward to mock draft season, and then having a conversation with both of you, I guess an argument or war room, if you want to call it, on Running Through the Jungle, and say like, hey, look, if somebody we draft, and if I don't like them, I'm going to say, that ain't my pick. That's y'all pick.
So next week we do the mock draft. The following week I will be in South Carolina. Now, I will be down there for the wedding. We're having a little draft watch party with the guys, cigars and good food and whatnot.
That's what's
up. To be continued, but my buddy Pay from Pay Dirt said he's going to be the AV guy, and he's going to come down and set up a little station so we can go live from down there. So my thought process here is, maybe instead of doing a full show, obviously we're not going to do 8:00 when it starts. Maybe after the Bengals draft, we jump on for a quick minute, talk about what we think about the pick, yada, have some live picks go on while we're doing said thing, and then I can dip out. You guys can do whatever you want. Just throwing it out there. That's what the plan is. Tim, party shots for the people.
Brandon's plans are like a woman's plans. They never stick.
Man,
But
you
anyway,
can't be sexist, man. It's 2025.
I don't care. I'm still going to say it, and I think my wife would agree with me. And I'm sure everybody else that know you would agree with me as well.
Not at all.
Um,
Everybody knows me outside of work. How about that?
That's true. That's true. But no, I really don't have very much. I think this was a great, we had a great show. It was nice to see what we thought. I mean, like I said, I'm tired of talking about Trey Hendrickson. I'm just tired of it. Just get it done with or get the hell out. One or the other. I don't care. But draft season is coming, and I'm hoping, and hope is not a strategy, but I'm hoping that the Bengals hit home runs in the draft this year, and we that defense turns around with Al Golden, and the new defensive line coach turns it around. And I'm not a hot take guy, because I think hot takes is like, a broke clock is right, twice a day. But I'm going to give you guys a hot take to end off my little segment here but I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be in the top 15 overall in defense this year. That's just my hot take. I think things are going to turn around with the new defensive coordinator, the new defensive line coach, playing these young guys with or without Trey. It is what it is, and we'll see what happens. But everybody just take a deep breath, take a shot of tequila, and let's just see what happens. You guys
Make
have
it
a
a
good
double.
day. Who day?
Doctor's orders. Listen, man, Justin, I asked Justin last year towards the end of the year, or right at the end of the year, I said, if we have a middle of the pack, 14th, 15th ranked defense in the league, do we have a shot at the Super Bowl? And Justin immediately said yes. So I hope you're right, because I think that's all we need. That's all we need. We need to get Joe Burrow 2.5 seconds, and we need to have an average defense.
Yeah.
Pretty simple philosophy. I think those things are obtainable. And like I said earlier, don't get too into these media members of the Bengals community. They're out there with their hair on fire, talking about how bad everything is. Things are pretty good. I'll give you this. I'll give you an RELAX. At least we got a quarterback.
Amen.
So on that note, we'll be out of here. You can join us next week when we mock it up as we are running through the jungle.